Thanks, David, for chatting with us today. So what we're trying to do with these calls, it's an opportunity for New Paltz business owners to compare notes, and they also function as a way for the community to check in with some of their favorite businesses that they've been missing. So, our format is I'll ask a few questions. David will fill us in on the history of the bakery as well as what he's been up to recently. Then we'll take some questions from the participants on the Zoom call itself. And what we can also do, if anyone is following along via YouTube, if folks have questions, they can put those in the comment section of the YouTube, so we could try to manage or get some of those questions answered as well. So David, I'll let you start it off. I think it would be interesting for you to give us probably a brief history of the bakery. I bet you could probably explain lots of interesting stories, but just give us a little quick history as to the bakery and your involvement.
Okay, well, thank you for having me, Tim. Let's see, the bakery opened in 1981. I was 27 years old. I guess I could tell a little story about opening. When we came to the bakery, we were, Virginia Heiler was the chairperson of the planning board. And I was very, very afraid. I was 27 years old, and she had a reputation of turning down most businesses because she didn't like change in New Paltz. And I had prepared a lot. I had read I think I read the whole village code over in full. And I came very ready. And then the night before, I had a panic attack and I cut off my ponytail. I hadn't cut my hair since 8th grade. And I borrowed a suit from someone, a friend of a friend, because I didn't have a suit and nobody I knew had a suit. And I get to the planning board and ready for all these questions. And basically they wanted to know whether we were going to have bagels, what kind of bread we'd be serving, all their favorite things that were asking. We didn't ask one single question about the building or the business. It was just, thank God we have a bakery coming. So that was kind of my welcome to New Paltz and, well, to the bakery. And it's been pretty great since then. We're very small, which would have been really a perfect thing for right now because we had 4 employees. And it would have been a pretty easy thing to stay open through all this, which we have not managed to do at this point. So right now we have 22 employees and they're all laid off. And we closed on March 29th. What's that right? Yeah, March, I think that was what it was.
Got it. Can you tell us, do you have any idea how many employees the bakery has employed over the years? Do you have a eyeball number?
Gosh, 40 years probably. We have a lot of coming, we have, it's kind of like 2 businesses in a way. We have a kitchen staff who typically stays decades. I have 2 employees now who were with me from the day we opened. But then we have a lot of, as people who come in, see all the counter staff out front, and there's a lot of turnover there. So we probably have had probably about 30, 35 people a year for 40 years coming and going, whatever that comes out to.
Yeah. Do you want to walk us through the decision that you were required to make in terms of whether or not to keep the bakery open in March?
Mm-hmm. So when it first started, we were doing pretty good. People were still coming in. I'd say sales were off. It was a little tricky because we're coming off the winter, and we always, like many businesses, we lose money in the winter and try to make it up in the spring and fall and summer. So we came off the winter. We had the water crisis, which cost us quite a bit. And then we're ready to get started. And then we were off a certain percent. We weren't really doing great. But we were still serving people indoors. So when they said that we couldn't seat people, that was not that big a deal. And we closed off the upstairs, we closed off the seating, but people could still come in look at what they wanted to buy and choose their items. So when we got a notice that we would have to actually not let anyone inside the building, that's when we just didn't really have any choice but to close. It just wasn't, the way we're set up, it just doesn't allow for that very well. So
Got
I
it.
think the same day that they announced that is when we closed.
Did you go ahead and apply for the payroll protection program?
We chose not to apply for payroll protection. Payroll protection has rules basically that you have to get your full staff up and running within for 8 weeks continuous once you get the money that they lend you. And we have no idea when we're going to be open or when we do open, how busy we'll be. But we did apply for the EIDL, which is more of a straightforward loan. That seems better for us just because it's more straightforward. You could use the money more flexibly. And you have a 30-year payment term. So that would keep the payments low. The only problem is that we don't know if we're going to get it. And they've been very, very slow to respond.
Do you know how your staff has been doing in terms of their efforts to collect unemployment?
Yeah, we've been very in touch. I believe everyone who applied for unemployment got it. I think they're all doing okay. They all seem to want to come back to work. But they're financially, I think the unemployment with the extra $600 has been a real boon and allowed, I have part-timers who might not have really been able to make it, and even full-timers who have, my kitchen staff who are, like I said, were the full-timers. They have families, they have mortgages, and I was very worried about them. But the extra $600, I think, has allowed everybody to be able to function and be safe. And that, of course, ends in July.
Do you have, I feel like many of us are struggling at this point and guessing as to, what will happen in the future. But, what's your gut say about what the fall might look like for the bakery or next year, or, any thoughts on where we're headed?
It's really hard to say. I think for us, a lot depends on getting that loan from the SBA. When we, not everybody knows that when a business like mine, when you buy a bagel at the bakery, the ingredients for that bagel were purchased 4 weeks ago, sometimes 5 weeks ago. So when I'm doing sales today, I'm paying bills that are 30 days due. So when I completely close a business and you have nothing coming in, I owe all these vendors a month worth of bills. So kind of one of the most emotional things I've ever had to do was about a week after we closed, I had a call. I printed a list of 30 vendors, mostly small local people, that I had to tell that we're not going to be paying our bills for a while. And it was an amazing experience because every single one was, we understand, it's okay, call us when you're ready, we're here for you. I had one of my vendors just call me today just to check in and see how I was doing. And then after spending like 2 hours making these phone calls, the last one was to Rycor HVAC, who I had saved for last because they had just put a new compressor in one of my coolers and I owed them, a lot of money. And again, that's okay, we understand, we'll be fine, don't worry about us, pay the bills you have to pay. And then I'm just about to hang up and Marie says, "David, how are you doing?" And I just lost it and started weeping and crying, and she's, helping me instead of the other way around. And it was, it was an important day, and it was very cathartic and showed me that it made me feel like I really want to open the bakery, because partly for all these relationships that I've built up over all the years. In a way, it could be an opportunity for me to retire. I'm 66 years old, but I feel like more than ever, I want to come back and be successful. But I have no idea if people are going to want to, we have a few constraints in the sense that we're small physically. It's very hard to maintain social distance in a tiny little place like ours. So we're certainly gonna try, but it's very hard to know what the future is.
Can you elaborate on any ideas you may have come up with, like moving forward, like ideas that would affect your business plan, based on what we've, all endured, like any good ideas or things that you think you might want to be more cautious about, like that will tweak your business plan?
Well, one idea that we've been floating around, mostly my kids who live in other places and they've seen this more successful. We used to be a bakery, not a cafe. So we've thought about the idea of just going back to selling breads and bagels and rugelach and cookies and stuff, and not having cappuccino and sandwiches and soup. I don't, I mean, I added all that because we needed it, and it's been very successful for us. But it means you need 3 people behind the counter, which is very tight. And so that's one thing we're looking at, is just becoming a typical standard kind of bakery again. But again, I haven't really had a chance to start playing with spreadsheets and figure out if that could actually pay the rent.
Do you have any like thoughts on like macro conditions and New Paltz as a downtown, that have been affected or will be affected by this pandemic? Like anything that you think is worth commenting on?
Well, I think New Paltz has put itself in a dangerous position over the years by we've basically given up any sort of diversity of our businesses. We've become a town of restaurants and cafes almost exclusively, and I think a time like this that really puts that model to the test, because people aren't going to go out as much, and you can't just have restaurant after restaurant. I don't think it was a good idea to start with. I don't think it's been a healthy thing for New Paltz over the last couple of decades as it's been increasing. But we used to have Army Navy stores and shoe stores and clothing stores, and we don't even though we have some boutiques and record stores, it's not like if you go to Rhinebeck or Woodstock, and there's a lot more focus on actual retail. And I think I'm hoping if some stores do go under, I hope they don't just get replaced by another restaurant or cafe. I hope that people see that people also want to shop for real things that they need in their homes.
I think that we're still in a precarious situation, but I feel like there's way more non-restaurant and bar things here than when I got here 30 years ago.
Really?
I think there's more shops, but it's still obviously predominantly catering to student and hospitality industry stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the point that you raise is an interesting one, where if you're an entrepreneur, the most attractive business idea, considering our local community and who demands services, would be to do a cafe or restaurant. And because of the risks that have been introduced to us, maybe entrepreneurs will now say, well, a cafe is not the slam dunk that we thought it was prior to the pandemic. So, the market and, entrepreneurs' ability to calculate different risks, maybe that will drive, other business models.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to see that.
So
I mean, look at Kingston, they're catering to transplants, which is a lot of the forecast is that we're going to see another uptick in people moving up from the city.
Mm-hmm. That would be interesting. Certainly, our best year in the history of the bakery was 2002, after all the 9/11 people came moving up here. I'm not necessarily looking forward to that, but that may be true.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much uncertainty and crystal balling going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think uncertainty is what's driving everyone's anxiety on top of being broke.
Hmm.
So, we can probably get into some more macro questions in a bit, but I wanted to stick with some bakery themed questions for a bit longer. So we posted like a sample question on the YouTube comments. So Ariana and I were just wondering, like, do you have like a favorite thing to eat versus a favorite thing to make at the bakery?
Well, my thing has always been bagels, and I'm lucky enough that I managed to freeze about 4 or 5 dozen of them. I've still been having a bagel with cream cheese every morning. I'm guilty of that. But I've always been the bread person. So when I was the main baker at the bakery, we almost always focused on rye breads and challahs and hard rolls and bagels and bialys. That's always been my thing. And now we have bakers who are a lot more skilled in other items. So we have a lot more pastry and a lot more cake and a lot more interesting, good looking items. And we're selling a lot less breads and such. But that comes and goes, and we'll see. I think I've noticed a lot of people are baking now, and they seem to be baking a lot of breads. And I think there will be perhaps a renewed interest in that kind of thing. So maybe we'll be able to sell more of the things I like bagels and breads.
Got it. So anyone on the Zoom call have questions for David?
I have a question, David.
Hey.
How are you?
Good.
Good to see you. So I want you to open back up because I need to have my bialy and my chai tea that I always come in for. But I was thinking, so do you have any plans for like reopening? Like I know, we're thinking at the bistro, maybe we may, do something mid-May. I've heard a couple other restaurants saying they're interested in, maybe mid-May, May 15th-ish. The weather. I just would think like for you with the outside seating, that might, when the weather gets a little warmer, you're lucky that you have some outside seating where people can grab a cup of coffee and a bagel or and sit outside. So any thoughts of that, like come across your, head, maybe opening up like when it gets a little warmer?
I've thought about it. I just think for us, it's kind of an all or nothing thing. It's very hard to, like right now, I'm home, I'm not spending much money. My staff is on unemployment. To open just halfway and be losing money seems really difficult. The week before we closed, we were off about 30 to 40%. And we're basically just bleeding money. I just wouldn't last very long at half capacities. But that might be what we're going to be even when we do fully open. Right. We might need half capacity. So I really need to come up with a model that works with less volume. And I'm not really sure what that is yet. If I'm making sandwiches and serving sandwiches, I need to have enough people there to be able to do it.
Right.
If I'm not serving sandwiches and I need to be able to I need to cut my cost enough to make a living at that level. So I have not figured that out yet. I'm very interested. I know Seth at Karma Road just reopened for just a couple of weeks, and I'm really interested in talking to them about how they're doing. I know last week, Mike from P&G's made it sound like he was doing really, really well. But I just don't think we would do as well if we were just serving outside and pick up.
Yeah,
but it's worth finding. If you do it, I'll certainly be at your door.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with boredom. Like my husband's like, I gotta get out of my house, and also again the weather getting warmer, people wanting to get out a little bit more, and just. There's some foot traffic in town, and I don't know. I just think I understand what you're saying 100%, though. I mean, we are worried too, because, we're a small place, and, once we start, if we do open up and are able to see people again at some point, and then the social distancing has to take place, like, how is that going to look? I mean, Teresa, like at the parish, like you guys, you have that little outdoor area too, but like the inside seating is tight. The bar area is tight. We're same thing. Our bar area is tight. So I totally understand where you're saying it's either, you're going to do it 100% or nothing, because, right, why bring everybody back in for, a really small percentage of, money coming in.
Right.
So
But
it's difficult.
that VA loan really is important.
Yeah,
If I could, for instance, I'm not going to get any deliveries if I don't pay some of my bills. Who's going to
Right.
want to come and bring me more food?
right.
So, if we could have a little cushion where we could have enough money sitting in the account so that we could have some slow weekends and not worry too much about it. But it's tough. I
Yeah.
just don't know what we're going to do. It won't be May 15th. I'm pretty sure that it'll be a
Later
little
than
later.
that,
for us,
yeah.
Teresa Fall, do you have a question?
No, I mean, I would comment that I agree. It's when you're a small space, it doesn't seem to make sense to open up, because you'll be operating at a loss.
Mhm.
It'll cost you money to be open. Jard is so tiny. I have 14 seats in there. Who's going to come in Jard if they're afraid to be around people? I have a
Yeah.
little bit of outdoor seating, but still, it doesn't make a lot of sense with my model, which is based on volume. My
And
model.
Also, why would you want to go out if you can't be near people?
There's people that want
as a
to go out.
social. It's a
Yeah.
social thing to go out to
Yeah.
eat.
But you have to think there are people out there who, unfortunately, they're not taking it that seriously, and they don't care anymore. I see it because we have a business that's open, and we have to be really clear with people. You have to have a mask. You can't stand that close to me, that sort of thing. And I think we're at a point now where they're thinking, I haven't gotten sick yet, so I must be immune, or I don't care anymore. So
Mhm.
yes, they do want to be near each other, but they're going to try and violate that too. It has happened in the crux of it.
Wow.
There's
Well, I feel like that's kind of what Lagusta was talking about a couple of calls ago. Like, before things were shut down, she felt like a hall monitor. It seems like that's, what's going to unfortunately have to happen. Like a business owner is going to have to be
Yeah.
constantly reprimanding people and, to follow rules. That's,
Mhm.
And honestly, when there's alcohol involved, it gets more difficult. A bakery, people are a little bit better behaved. A cafe, when people have had a couple drinks, they loosen up a little bit, and then it's harder for them to reel them in. It's going to be so tricky. I was talking to a friend the other night who has experience with these type of pandemics, et cetera. And his comment was that he would plan for your business to be different for at least a year, and that there very well likely could be another surge in our area, probably going into winter. This could all happen all over again, a quarantine. And he was saying, I wouldn't expect your business to be anything like it looked like before for at least a year. Which he's probably right, but that's scary, because I've been thinking, just get me through the summer, but the summer gets me through my winter. So if we have a crappy summer, how am I going to get through winter? And then you come into fall, our busy season, but people are still going to be, it's going to be different. And then if the quarantine happens again going in winter, then what?
Right.
Yeah, it's just scary to think about the long term. It's,
1 year is a long time.
it is a long time.
Right. But yet all the pluses remain. We still are 70 miles from the largest population center there is.
Mhm.
We're still a beautiful place. We still have great businesses. So I think in the long run, whatever's here is New Paltz will always be a successful place.
Yeah.
I agree. It'll probably be more overrun after this, with people coming in and buying homes too. I think we're going to see something like we saw after 9/11. I think the market's going to go up even further, because people who are living in the city in their small apartments and envying if they were about to make a move before, or thinking about making a move, they might just make it. And this is a desirable location.
Right.
Right, and especially because now people have figured out how to use video conferencing and they know when to turn mute on and off. None of us knew how to do that before 2 months ago. So do we have any other final questions or comments? I mean, I can share, like, we do have a YouTube comment from trustee Alex Wojcik where she said she's missing the bakery's bagels and veggie cream cheese more than anything right now.
Well, thank you. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So any final questions, comments before we wrap it up? Because we're approaching our 30-minute mark.
No, I just hope everybody's doing well and hanging in there, and it's a tough time, and I just trying to support all the businesses in town that are open, and it's just it's good to see everybody looking well, and I hope this ends soon or gets better soon. So
You
Got
too.
it.
that's all I
And
got.
I wish you luck. I mean, your business has been there for so long, and I think that you're onto something when you talk about not opening back up as a cafe right away. You just have to cut back your staff. That's what's going to have to be, and just have a couple people in there and
Yeah.
just do your bagels and bread and stuff to go. I mean, so many businesses that are doing okay, it's because they changed their model and they figure
Right.
out something else. And then you can go back to the way it was eventually, even if maybe you don't want to. But I'm sure you have a big space, so that's an issue with I know you have a big space, but that's an
Right.
issue with maintaining rent and overhead and whatnot. But you could start out small and then build up from there.
Yeah, and it is exciting to think of having to the idea of rethinking, and I really enjoyed, it was so many years ago, opening the bakery. I really enjoyed when we built the addition and had to figure out how to use this space. It's just I've been kind of on a free ride for a little while, and it's on some level it's exciting to think that we've got new challenges and we got things to figure out, and you got to use your brain a little bit. We'll see what happens.
I'm glad you find that exciting.
Yeah.
My stomach went nuts.
We have a lot of reimagining to do. So
Yeah,
I appreciate trying to see the silver lining
yeah,
there.
awesome.
Yeah, me too.
All right, well, thanks everyone, and
Thank you.
Thanks.
talk again
Thanks,
soon.
Tim. Yeah.
Great.
It's
Thank you for
very
bringing us
nice to
together.
see everybody.
Yes. Good seeing everyone. Take
Take
care.
care, everyone.
Good
Good luck.